I mean, I think there are definitely, times where I have found very helpful things from Krystal. To be honest with you, not so much the Young Turks, to be honest. I mean, just being honest here. And I have to say that, I have not followed that much of the Young Turks, but I have seen clips where, Anna has talked about, the fact that everybody's calling her a birthing person or something to that effect, which I find extremely hard to believe that there's been more than one person that's ever said that to her. But whatever, be that as it may, I don't care if it's 10. Who cares? Grow up.
We like to consider ourselves critics of media, right? We like to think of ourselves as, the left zone indie media critics. And Sam Seder, quick to point out in this clip that he's not a media critic, though he'd make a fair one if he ever decided to. Surely he could put us out of business, right? But he goes into not just the Young Turks, but a little bit of breaking points thanks to this caller. And boy, is it spicy.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point, Zach. I think that in some ways Sam Seder is a media critic, mostly though of the right-wing media. A lot of times on Majority Report, they're reacting to fools like Dave Rubin or Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro. You guys know the usual cast of characters. Here on the Vanguard, we do things a little bit differently. Traditionally, we've always kind of preferred talking about our own. Call it problematic, call it a circular firing squad or whatever you want. Call it destructive TMZ drama guard. Yeah, poisoning the well and destroying the left one video at a time. But either way, we like to talk more about the left. Bad actors on the left, good actors on the left, people we agree with, people we don't agree with, the whole spectrum, right? Either way, let's take a look at this video, guys, because Sam Seder kind of compares and contrasts the reporting of TYT with breaking points, and specifically, I think Anna Kasparian with Krystal Ball. Those are the main names that get brought up.
Hi, Sam and Matt. This is Stephen in Dublin, Ireland.
Stephen in Dublin, Ireland. What's happening, Stephen?
So I listen to and watch quite a lot of politics in America. I've listened to your show for years. Did listen to TYT and watched TYT for a long time. Unfortunately, with the issues with Anna, in particularly talking about trans issues, just kind of turned me off it. And recently, I also listened to and watched Breaking Points with Krystal and Saagar. So unfortunately, the other day, there was they were speaking about the Haitian migrants story that was made up, and Saagar was just extremely racist as usual, and even brought in Irish people into it and said about Irish people causing prohibition, when we came into America. And that was the reason why the drunk Irish had to, you have to ban the alcohol to stop us.
What?
Now, yeah.
Well, I have no doubt that in some circles that was used as an excuse.
Of course, and we, that is something that kind of still people say about the Irish, but I think we would use it as a good example of, even though we're white, we were treated particularly badly, similar to the Italians, in New York. And look, I find that part funny, but also he has bringing up trans issues and being kind of transphobic. And I really love Krystal. And so I suppose the question that I have for you, I don't want to stop, listening to different news sources just because somebody has a different opinion. I do like the idea of their show.
Have you ever heard of the Vanguard?
Yeah.
If you're looking for a new program to enjoy,
watch for the revolution. Sign up below.
Well, that's what I'm hoping Sam Seder recommends.
That it's somebody that's more on the left and someone more on the right, but they're basically apolitical. What is your opinion on kind of that style of show? And do you think it works? Do you think it helps people kind of understand left issues more? Or do you think I'm not going to pretend like I watch either of the shows that you've mentioned on a regular basis. I just don't. I don't watch. I don't watch other people's shows really for the most part. I just end up, I read more often than not. I'll see clips.
I mean, I think there are definitely, times where I have found very helpful things from Krystal. To be honest with you,
retweet.
Not so much the Young Turks, to be honest with you. I mean, just being honest here. And I have to say that, I have not followed that much of the Young Turks, but I have seen clips where, Anna has talked about, the fact that everybody's calling her a birthing person or something to that effect.
Really hurtful.
Which I find extremely hard to believe that there's been more than one person that's ever.
There's never been more than one person. I question whether it's ever happened at all. And this is the same Anna Kasparian who yesterday we reacted to saying, oh, Kamala. Oh, what's the difference? Just stop being woke. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, you can't get called a birthing person, but also we can't ask that the vice president and, presidential candidate from the Democratic Party be shown a little bit of human decency by having their name pronounced correctly. And somebody in our comment section the other day actually made a really good point about that, how a lot of people were pronouncing Tim Walz last name Waltz. And then when we all realized we fucked up, nobody made a big deal out of it. We all just started calling him Tim Walz instead. It's because everybody just made a quick adjustment, because when you read it, it looks like it might be Walt, but it's Walz, and nobody cared. And it didn't become a big culture war nonsense talking point because he's a white guy.
Or said that to her. But whatever, be that as it may, I don't care if it's 10. Who cares? Grow up. We just see, stuff like they've also been harping about how crime statistics are out of control. The fact of the matter is that in 2023, crime is down in this country with something like 90% of police departments in the country now.
And go ahead and check out our most recent video or maybe not a recent video we put out.
It was in a live stream.
Yeah. We basically debunked line by line Anna Kasparian's FBI talking points when they put out the most recent list of crimes reported. Not only are murders and all violent crimes down, the only crime that's up is consumer crimes.
Reporting. They like to pretend that less than that have been reporting. Here's, they put up this Crowder, that dude. He put up something, and the fact of the matter is that the most recent crime statistics. You've got me a little bit off topic, but this set me up because I'm not, I'm not a media critic, but I am a critic of BS that is being pushed by people. And put up that murder dropped in this country from 2022 to 2023. Violent crime was down about 3%, although it was up for hate crimes for LGBTQ people.
What?
And here it is. Overall, and this is coming from NBC News, overall, the FBI's National Incident-Based Reporting System collected information. Because here, put up that tweet. Do we have that tweet from Crowder's producer?
I'm not sure which.
I had it in the Slack.
Okay, I'll look.
From Gerald or whatever that guy's name is.
Okay.
Gerald.
I mean, I'm only bringing this up.
Gerald.
And like I say, I'm not a media critic. I don't know. I haven't watched enough of Saagar and Krystal's show to know. I've seen clips that I've found very helpful from Krystal.
Boom.
And the clips, frankly, I've seen from TYT. I'm not going to pretend like I watch that show on a regular basis either. But I do know that the complaints about crime over there, I mean, it's like local news. They'll take one, crime and then hype it and make some type of data around it. But here, this is what Gerald wrote. This is Crowder's producer.
Okay, what's hilarious about that, guys, is this is exactly verbatim what Anna Kasparian argued on the Young Turks. She used this exact talking point, which is why Gavin and I, for 6 to 8 months now, have been arguing that I'm pretty sure when she goes home, she just watches the Daily Wire. I'm pretty sure when she goes home, she just watches Fox News, Steven Crowder, Adam and Sitch, whatever. I think she is getting her information from right-wing sources, because that if you were in that situation where you work with lefties and you're like, oh, I want to get an ulterior or alternative perspective, right? And so Maybe that's how you start off naturally. And then you just start being really, really unsophisticated in how you scrutinize this data. So you say, oh, yeah, 32% of all police agencies submitted no data. That must mean that the police agencies want to cover up how bad they're doing. Oh, yeah. And so we have to give them more money because there's so much more crime. Like, do you see how flimsy that is? That's right-wing brain dead logic, guys.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, she really gives the game away when she accidentally lets one of those right-wing talking points slip. That it's like you only would have had that talking point in your head if you were absorbing a lot of this sort of media in the first place, which I think is very true.
Which granted did not participate. What is he responding to? I think is like somebody said, like, where are the statistics that say that crime isn't down? Because he had made that claim. This map, 6,000 agencies submitted no 2022 data, 32% of all police agencies. He's complaining because he's saying that the 2022 statistics are wrong because only 70 or 68% of the police departments submitted information. Well, now, and of course, he has to point to 2022 because he doesn't want you to see that in 2023, we now have 94.3% of the country.
And again, if you want to hear this first, you can subscribe to the Vanguard. We covered this.
Reporting in. Agencies that cover 94.3% of the country. 700 additional agencies in 2023 compared to 2022 on that national incident-based reporting system. And the fact of the matter is that crime is down.
Rare W for Pete.
In fact, the only crime that is up, speaking about misinformation, the only crime that is up
like consumer crimes
is shoplifting.
Yeah.
Recorded events of shoplifting were up from about 1 million in 2022 to 1.15 in 2023.
Is that because of the new law saying that you can steal anything under $1,000? I've heard a lot about that. I'm sure Anna will, let us know about her talking points in that regard as well.
It's true. It has nothing to do with skyrocketing housing, grocery, fuel, and living expenses. It's actually Americans are so greedy and we made crime legal.
The interesting thing about that, Rise, it now brings us to 2019 levels. In other words, all the time that we heard that shoplifting was going crazy, the smash and grabs and this and that, shoplifting was actually down.
Back to the levels of when Donald fucking Trump was president, by the way.
2021 and 2022 and in 2020 because of COVID. And it's up now to where it was pre-COVID.
Well, because the shoplifters are just hearing about the George Floyd effect, where it's.
And also, let's talk about shoplifting a little bit. What about inflation? Ever hear about inflation? Isn't that a form of theft? Isn't that corporations stealing from the American people, taking advantage of desperation, specifically in a time like COVID during the pandemic? I mean, why aren't you talking about that in a Kasparian? How come, that's not part of your analysis? A lot more people are shoplifting. I wonder why. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that corporations are price gouging the desperate American people and that a lot of folks have no other option. Have you ever seen freaking Les Mis? How does it start? They just stealing a loaf of bread or whatever.
Well, it's crazy. Let's take LA because everybody's like, you guys are hillbillies from the country. You're from the urban area of Kansas City where the murder rate is way higher than LA and New York. So shut the fuck up, coasters. But we don't fearmonger about crime because guess what? I can walk safely anywhere in my fucking town. But yeah, if you live in LA, if you live in New York, if you live in San Francisco, guess what's skyrocketing? Your rent price. Okay, guess what? You can't steal rent. You can't steal rent. Many people would try. If you can't steal your water bill. You can't steal internet unless your neighbor lives really close by and you're sophisticated. You know what I'm saying? What you can steal is your groceries. What you can steal is fucking new sneakers. What you can steal is socks when you don't have money for that. It's an economic crisis that we're witnessing. And as Chad has pointed out, we don't see them talking about corporate crimes. I would love to see the trend for corporate crimes. Me too, Hysteria Creator. I'd love to see Anna and Cenk start talking about that a little bit instead of how these powerless, desperate people are responsible for the demise of the America they once loved. And it's and giving us a bunch of NIMBY-ass excuses for why we need more cops on the street in the most policed country in the world, in the most incarcerated country in the world, and with the most militarized police in the world.
Yep.
Worn out on other types of crime.
They were future predicting the George Floyd effect. But so I guess, Steve, I gave you a really unsatisfying answer. I don't know
Very
whether you
satisfying
should
for the
continue to
fans.
watch
Thanks,
that show. If there's value in watching it despite Saagar's transphobia. But I can tell you that the transphobia that,
Saagar doesn't even really care.
if you tell me he spouses it, I believe you. It's not hard for me to imagine. But that I've seen come from places like TYT or, Crowder or whomever it is.
TYT
And the crime hysteria, it's sort of fascinating. The crime is actually down, except for the hate crimes against folks in the trans community because of this type of rhetoric.
Yeah, and I do think, like you mentioned, like they're the main things that TYT did, Anna in particular did kind of push forward, without kind of understanding the criticism that she was getting, that she's a producer on that show. She's deciding which, stories to push to the top. And,
100%.
Yeah.
Because
I can't remember what it was.
People.
I can't remember what story it was that I appreciate the call.
Thank you.
I can't remember what story it was that.
And actually, guys, that was me calling in. I just had my Irish voice modulator on to get the drama, to get the juicy tea from Sam, and he delivered.
Coke's in a pot of gold to the end of the rainbow, huh?
Yeah, I should have just sent in Zach. I wouldn't even have had to use the voice modulator. Could have just had you do the impression, but that was great. I'm really glad to see someone at Sam Seder's level, not just a bottom feeder like us, but a real political commentator who's in the same league as Cenk and Anna, calling this bullshit out. As he said, this crime hysterics and the transphobia, it's bullshit. It's reactionary garbage. And the worst part, in my opinion, is that Anna specifically, it seems like Cenk is a lot more willing to debate. To his credit, he'll go anywhere to debate. But the thing that really annoys me about Anna and this pivot that she's taken is that she wants to just do the pivot, but then not face any accountability over it, not face any of her critics, not face any contrasting perspectives. The most we ever get in that regard is the little moments we react to, as we did yesterday, when someone like John Iadarola happens to be on the panel and is able to push back, but it's very rare. Anna Kasparian goes out of her way not to invite on anyone else who feels differently, who's criticized her or pushed back. And again, she's saying things that are completely contrary to things she was saying not that long ago, guys. It's like been a total 180 on a lot of these topics, specifically the gender, language, birthing people controversy, all that kind of fear mongering over the trans community. It's all very new. It's all as of the last 2 or 3 years. So, it's really weird that she wants to insulate herself in this increasingly right-wing echo chamber. And again, she won't even have anyone on to debate about it.
I got into an argument the last time I actually spoke to Cenk. I don't know if it was a year or two ago or when it was.
Oh, definitely. For us to keep playing.
Where I said something to the effect of maybe it was about trans women in sports.
Based.
And I said something to the effect of
Alpha Chad, Giga Chad.
This is not an important issue. It's one thing to be sitting at a bar and having a casual conversation with somebody about what you think about sports. I mean, I'm not that into sports, but I can understand people sitting around a bar going like, what should the inclusion rules of the International Basketball Association be? But I said something to the effect of you don't need to.
Bunch of fat guys my height talking about women in the WNBA and what their rules should be around a couple of brewskis. Yeah, that's the real sophistication.
I mean, I do think he's right, though, that
when
you're just a normal person, I think that sometimes these kind of conversations, they can take place when it's just between average folks, and they might be confused about what the hell, they have men playing in women's sports now? What's going on with that? And actually they've been on hormone. Oh, okay. These kind of conversations can happen. And sometimes ignorance is not always a result of hatred and bigotry. A lot of people just, they're normal people. They don't care about trans people, not because they hate them, but just because they're busy with whatever else is going on in their lives. So again, they might not have all the appropriate nomenclature in their back pocket. They might not be prepared to discuss these subject matters as sensitively as we are, but I think he's right to point out that, yeah, those kind of conversations can absolutely take place. But when we're talking about a public figure, a political commentator who's consistently like stoking the flames of this culture war, who's consistently throwing gasoline on the fire of this fear mongering, and moral panic.
Tell every opinion you have on your political talk show, because you have an editorial responsibility. What's actually important? What's being manipulated and being used? And these issues of crime, frankly, and the issues of transphobia are being utilized by the right, in addition to them lying about all this stuff. Just the attempt to make the conversation.
And we can give a supplemental example of how this happens all the fucking time, right? It's not just hysterics, it's actual live practice. I remember one day I had a homie I worked with, trans dude. One day went into work, was able to have access to transgender affirming care. Next day, Attorney General of Missouri bans that shit. And he's like, holy shit, if I can't get the tea that I need, my body is going to be fucked up right now. My body is going to be fucked up right now. And fortunately, there were avenues where he was able to get what he needed. But these are real lefty issues, and not the, I had to check the box that said birthing person. Like, you'd have to be a deranged, hysterical person to even try and equate them.
About it. Now, I think there's a debate to be had as to whether, weighing in on these things is hurting or helping. And I think, it's an argument on a per issue basis. A lot of people said never report on what Rush Limbaugh is saying. Well, I don't think that works out very well. That's my opinion on it, that it's worth it engaging in it. But you have to be.
See, guys, you hear that? It's worth it engaging in it. He's talking about what we do, covering Anna Kasparian clips. He's he's giving us our flowers, guys. He's saying this is a serious service to the people.
And what I do respect about Sam is that he does think that there's a real role for media criticism. And we've been really critical of Sam in the past. We've disagreed with him. We've hammered him, and he's always been super nice to us. In fact, you guys might see him on the show in a couple of weeks before the election, because I think he's going to come on and gab with us for a while. And I really respect that, even though he is the media, he doesn't mind having media critics react to his content.
Yep. And much like I was saying about Cenk, I was giving Cenk credit for actually engaging with his critics and debating. Sam Seder also engages with his critics and debates basically anyone who wants to debate him. I remember he had on like that dude, Actual Justice Warrior, totally destroyed him in a debate. He debated like Jackson Hinkle back in the day. He debated us. That was a fun conversation. Sam is really unafraid of actually, engaging in those sort of intellectual exercises.
Oh yeah, he's confident in his beliefs, and I think that that's something that's admirable.
Engaging in it with an awareness of, like, you're also, every time you open your mouth about it, you're helping push some type of false narrative, and you need to make sure that what you're doing dispels it. And like within the context of the Rashida Tlaib story, every time we mention the accusation, a certain percentage of it continues to bleed in the accusation that she was anti-Semitic when she was clearly not. So this is all part of it. But the fact of the matter is that people who are going around saying that we had some type of abnormal crime spurt following the once in a lifetime, hopefully, certainly once in 100 years so far, pandemic, or that there was some type of crisis in, girls' sports or women's sports or sports in general because of trans people is absurd. It's absurd. There's some type of crisis because people are using birthing persons instead of like, women in some very narrow circumstances. Give me a break.
A medical form, which is the only time she could actually give a legitimate example of when the birthing person was being used. And you might think that would be relevant. Like, hey, do you menstruate? A question a doctor should be able to ask you, right? Like, hey, is this something that your body still performs as a function, right? It's a gentle way to ask if somebody's cisgender, and it's inclusive, and it's no skin off your fucking ass if you're just a regular, decent human being. And the fact that she acts like it's some erosion of women's rights, some chip away at what makes her her. Oh, I'm not just a menstruating person. No, you're not. Nobody's ever reduced you to that on one single medical form. You were asked a very specific question. You know what I mean? It's like if I had to ask There's any number of fucking I don't know. It's just ridiculous.
All that stuff transparently fabricated and inflated for a transparent purpose, and that should be part of the job, is ascertaining that purpose, that these sorts of blind alleys
100%.
lead you.
And to be clear, still going on. Still going on. We have Republican candidates across the country still running on this stuff. We have ads going out. I don't know if it was in Florida or.
And what's really something I think to note about Anna Kasparian's recent pivot is that her uproar and pearl clutching about the birthing person thing, her skepticism when it comes to trans healthcare, it's coming at the same time where she started to say like some pretty problematic things about race in an unexpected fashion, right? Like the Kamala thing,
I don't speak
rhetoric,
to black people
rhetoric.
because I'm afraid that they're going to call me racist.
Bro, that was the most unhinged thing I'd ever heard anybody say that claimed to be a progressive. Go ahead and repeat that one more time for the people in the back. This is a direct quote from Anna Kasparian, who will tell you that she's not racist. What did she say on a hot microphone?
On Stitch and Adam's show, she said that she doesn't like talking with or hanging out with black people because she's afraid of saying the wrong thing and then getting called racist.
Yeah, to which case she was reassured by a bunch of white dudes that that's totally normal and that everybody feels that way. And she doesn't want you to think that she's in a right-wing echo chamber. Then why are you doing all of these things simultaneously? It's not only the racism, it's not only the anti-LGBTQ bigotry, it's not only the, pro-cop, anti-homeless talking points, right? It's that they're all coming together at the same time. This is not organic, dude. This is called selling out, and it's a problem.
Where, or maybe it's in Ohio, where Marino is running against Sherrod Brown by putting out transphobic advertising. I mean, this stuff is being weaponized. And the victims, incidentally, because I don't think that it really has the electoral resonance that the Republicans seem to think it has. But there are real victims here. They are children who are stigmatized. There are trans people who are subject to full-on violence, to murder, to assault, to getting fired from work, to losing housing, to being ostracized by their family. I mean, across the board, there are victims here. Make no mistake about it. But it's not the people who have to go around and I don't know if I'm a woman or if I'm a birthing person. I've lost my sense of who I am. Somehow my rights have been abrogated because of it. It's absurd.
So that was about the end of that clip.